Casinos often evoke a not in my backyard sentiment, but not so much in Everett. Most residents there are betting on the $1.6 billion resort to improve their quality of life. And that's at least partly due to developer Steve Wynn's promise to clean up the long vacant brownfield where he plans to build. WGBH News reporter Ron Sanders has more.
It's long been one of New England's most toxic addresses, 22 Chemical Lane. For decades, it was home to a Monsanto plant that churned out industrial chemicals. Those who lived nearby recall the plant belching smoke so thick they couldn't see the horizon.
It happened every night just after 5 or 6 o'clock, right around just before it got dark at night.
Mary Bagarella, now 89 years old, grew up in Monsanto's shadow in a neighborhood quaintly called The Village. She was no stranger to chemical spills and thought little about the plant's hazards.
We used to congregate at night after supper in the village, and at night we played games, and the chimney down the Monsanto plant would let out some white smoke.
Bagarella raised her 3 sons in the village, but when 2 of them developed cancer, she blamed the Monsanto site.
You know, I can't say for sure, I have no actual proof, but it's coincidental. We did have a lot of younger people, under 50 years old, that passed away over the years in this area close to the site.
After the plant closed in 1983, Monsanto cleaned up half the property, where a shopping center now sits. But the other half sat vacant for 30 years, contaminated with toxins like arsenic, lead, and sulfur. When Steve Wynn offered to clean up the site as part of his casino proposal, Mary Bagarella got behind the pro-casino campaign.
We lost a lot of young people to cancer, including my son Ronald. He was 46. It's a miracle anyone would ever clean it up, but the Wynn project will.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it unanimously.
Wynn Resorts was awarded a casino license the day after Massachusetts voters overwhelmingly rejected repeal of the casino law. Wynn executives pledged to soon start the cleanup of Old Chemical Lane, and some initial work has already begun.
We're expecting to start after the first of the year, in the first quarter, after all the environmental permits are secured. We expect about 6 months for the remediation and then another 30 months for construction.
That puts completion at the end of 2017. Taxpayers won't pay a cent for the estimated $30 million cost of Wynn's cleanup, but the state will sign off on all work.
It is technical. We'll be following all of the state and federal guidelines for remediation. It will be done carefully, thoroughly, and by the book.
Everett Mayor Carlo Di Maria says he hopes this will be a catalyst for other sites in Everett and elsewhere.
For me, that's what it was always about. It was really getting someone to clean the property up. I thank the voters in the Commonwealth. I think a lot of people saw that ad with the woman who talked about the Monsanto site. It resonated with lots of people.
Since Wynn first set his sights on Everett, Mary Bagarella lost another son in addition to Ron, her youngest boy, Jack.
They both passed away at an early age, and they both had cancer. One had lung cancer, and the other had brain tumor. It would be wonderful if they did clean it up, you know, just in case. It's better to be careful than sorry.
The Everett site, which Emily has been home to different chemical companies dating back to the mid-19th century, is classified by the state as a Tier 2 site. That means it poses the least amount of risk to the public, but that's because most of the contamination is below the surface of the soil.
I can't believe they call it chemical way as if that's a bragging point. So, but are some of these chemicals still leaching into the Mystic River or not?
Yes, I'm told by some of the people connected with the Wynn project that the chemistry of the soil, the pH of it is such that it's called slippery, and that's part of the cleanup.
Wow, all right. Good report. Thanks, Ron. Thanks. All right, well, my next guest has lived in Everett for most of his life. Charles DePerry grew up in the shadow of the Monsanto plant and remembers that thick smoke that poured out. Welcome, Charles. Good to have you here.
Welcome.
So did the neighbors, like Mary, did you complain about it, or did you just live with it?
Most of the parents in the village section worked at the chemical company, so no one really complained about it.
Were there concerns back then that it might be a health hazard?
No, I don't believe so. It was our playground when we were kids. We swam in the rivers. We also saw, when the tide was low, we saw barrels of contamination Some were cracked open, some were still there. We just thought it was part of life.
When do you remember it sort of dawning on you that, wait a second, this is really a dangerous situation? Was it back in the 80s when we started seeing, like with the W.R. Grace Company and those, that you started
It was
thinking,
in the 60s when I
60s.
realized that something was terribly wrong. But no one ever did anything about it.
All right, let's bring another voice into the discussion here. Robert DeSalvo, welcome. He's the president of Wynn, Massachusetts, and he's helping to oversee the casino development in Everett. This is quite the undertaking. I was reading some of the work you're going to be doing. I mean, you're going to be removing soil. I mean, do you have to remove it all? And how do you contain the, the actual landscaping itself if you do that?
Well, first of all, Emily, thanks for having us on. And actually, we don't have to remove all the soil. There's really 3 hot spots that are actually on the site. And on 2 of those spots, there will be soil that will actually be removed in a safe way and brought to a location where it can be, in fact, put. The third area is out by the water itself. And in that particular area, what they do is there's a process whereby they inject into the soil a cement-like product that will actually stabilize it and stop that leaching from actually going into the water. So in 3 different areas, 2 different methods for cleaning it up. But it's not the entire site. It's just 3 particular hot spots that have to be dealt with.
Are you prepared for surprises? they claim to know what all is there, but maybe not.
Well, the way that you try to at least deal with any potential surprises is you do what's called pre-characterization work. So that is the process whereby they actually drill borings onto the site, and then they do investigations of the soil itself to see what's actually in it, to try to eliminate the possibility of those surprises. Of course, you never know with these jobs till you get into them, but I think we can really try to isolate where the problem areas are and deal with them accordingly.
So the cleanup is actually happening in conjunction with the actual building. But how long will it take to decontaminate the site?
We're thinking about 6 months from start to finish. 3 months of real heavy work, but there's other work to be done, at least on the land side. But the whole process takes about 6 months, and it'll be about 30 months to actually build out the resort project, putting the opening in late 17.
So Charles, I mean, this is not a Superfund site, as you know. This ended up a brownfield, as they call it, which is something slightly less than a Superfund site. But during the 80s, when you saw what was going on in Woburn at W.R. Grace, and there were lawsuits filed, people contended there were cancer clusters, and there was one in Long Island, there was one right here. Did you and your neighbors ever consider suing Monsanto?
No, we didn't. I don't know why. But it just didn't seem like anyone cared about it or thought about it.
Did you and your family think that some of the illness, in hindsight, some of the illnesses you said you had?
No, they were the old-time Italians, most of the village area, and they just thought it was part of
your heritage.
Yes.
And no one ever thought. I mean, there's no direct link. We should make that clear here. No one can prove.
No, we can't prove. We can't prove it. My sister died of leukemia. There was about 3 or 4 people on my street. I lived next door to Mary Bagarella. And about 4 or 5 people died from leukemia.
Well, her sons died of, I don't know whether they were smokers or whether they worked in an environment with a lot of heavy smoke, or whether they worked at the plant itself, which could also give you lung disease.
My father worked at the plant.
And
he lived to be 88.
So he seemed to be unaffected by it.
Right.
Do you think that one of the reasons why Wynn Resorts was selected was because you were going to clean up this brownfield?
Well, I think we were selected for many reasons. A lot of it had to do with the amount of jobs, with the fact that we are a major developer worldwide, doing 5-star resorts. But one of the attractions of the project was the fact that we were going to clean up this site that nobody seems to have wanted to tackle. And that's one of the things we feel very proud of, the ability to not only do the cleanup, but then reconnect Everett to the waterfront, provide a harbor walk, access to individuals, water taxi service from Boston. And there's so many good things that can be done with the water. We've been working with the Mystic River Watershed Association, and they've got so many good projects to really go up and down the Mystic River and try to assist where they can in all of the cleanup efforts. So for us, it's about building a great resort, but also cleaning up this site and returning the city of Everett to its natural waterfront.
Are you happy about this, Charles?
Very happy. I think if the Wynn project didn't happen, that land would stay that way forever.
Yeah, I think most of us forgot it even existed. And when you look at those maps and you see what an enormous parcel of land that is, and sitting there right on the water, it's really quite remarkable.
And long ago, people probably don't realize this, but Everett was called a jewel on the hill. But now we can probably call it the jewel on Lower Broadway.
Okay, well, the jewel will be back according to Wynn. All right, Robert DeSalvio, thanks so much, and Charles DePerry.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.